everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Christina Kent and I'm an oil painter based out of San Francisco. Today I'm going to talk about the 4 myths that held me back from pursuing art. When I was younger, I absolutely loved making art, and I actually came pretty close to pursuing art as a career, or at least going to art school. I took all the high school art classes I could, I put all my applications together, I built a portfolio, but when it came down to it, I ultimately changed my mind. And looking back now, it can be kind of hard to understand because I know I was so passionate about art. It was what I loved more than anything else. So why didn't I pursue it as a career? When I started painting again a few years ago, I started to think about what had held me back from pursuing art in the first place. And I ended up doing The Artist's Way, which is a great book to help inform your thinking about what's holding you back creatively and how you can break down some of these barriers. And in doing The Artist's Way, I realized that there were a few things that were holding me back from pursuing art when I was younger. One of the things is perfectionism, which is something that I've talked about in other videos. But I also realized that there were 5 myths that I was believing about art that had held me back. So in this video, I want to talk about those myths and break down why they aren't true, both for my younger self and for anyone else who might be believing them. The first myth about art is that art is selfish. I had this idea that making art, because it was something that I enjoyed so much, because I absolutely loved it and I just thought it was so fun to do, it would be selfish to pursue art full time. A career was supposed to be work. A career was supposed to be something that was difficult, that you actually had to work on. And I feel like, especially being in a society that really involves hard work and hustle, art just seemed like something, it was a hobby. It was something for me to enjoy in my free time, but it wasn't something that I should make into a career. And I thought that a career, that work, was supposed to help others in the world, not supposed to be something that you personally enjoyed. And in particular, I was graduating high school during the Great Recession. So I saw so many people become unemployed. I saw so many people struggling based on what was happening in the economy that I thought surely pursuing art, pursuing this thing that was just really fun for me, wouldn't be the best use of my time. And it'd be better to study something like economics to try to prevent these things from happening in the first place. I thought pursuing this path would help me fight poverty, which would help reduce suffering. And when you compared pursuing art to that, pursuing art really seemed like the selfish choice. But now looking back, I realize that this is ridiculous. There are so many ways to help improve the world, and I think art is one of them. I focused so much on career paths that could help reduce suffering, but I'd kind of thrown out the career paths that could help increase joy, which is just as important. And I think art can totally do that. Art can help bring beauty into people's lives. It can change the way they see the world. It can turn our mundane, gray, everyday existence into something beautiful and sublime, and I think that that is so worthwhile. Plus, I realized when I was doing a career out of obligation, when I was doing a career just because I thought it was the right thing to do, I wasn't happy. And when I wasn't happy, I wasn't a nice person to be around. I was always depressed or tired or frustrated, and I don't think that that's great energy to be putting out into the world. As soon as I started doing art again, I realized my whole being started to shift. And as I was following what made me happy, it actually helped me make other people happy too. It's like what they say in the airplanes about putting on your own oxygen mask first. I think if you're not pursuing your joy and you're not doing things that make you happy, then it's going to be really hard for you to help others. Pursuing art isn't selfish. It makes the world a more joyful and beautiful place. The second art myth is that art is a luxury. And the reasoning kind of goes back to my earlier point about how there's all these problems in the world. There's suffering, there's poverty, there's war, there's so many serious things going on. It just seems kind of silly to be pursuing something like art. I thought people didn't actually need art and that it was really only for rich people. Did I really want to devote my life to making a luxury good? Surely there were more useful things I could do. And in a way, art does seem like a luxury. You can't eat it, it's not going to give you energy, it's not going to sustain you. If you're in pure survival mode, you're going to be focusing on how to find food or how to find shelter and not on what piece you're going to be hanging on your wall. But then I looked more into the history of art, and I realized that art has been with humanity throughout all of human history. It seems like as long as humans have existed, we've been making art, whether it's making jewelry or designing beautiful clothes or putting paintings on cave walls. Art has been a key component to who we are. The oldest cave painting that we know of today is estimated to be 50,000 years old. 50,000 years! I mean, back when they were making these old paintings, They didn't have modern medicine, they didn't have electricity, they didn't have cars, they didn't have so many things that we think of as necessities now. And yet they were still finding time to make art. They were probably struggling to find food even, and had to go through famines and droughts and all these horrible challenges, and yet they were still making art. To me, that shows that making art is essential to our humanity. So now I don't think of art as a luxury, but I think of it as a necessity, because our lives are more about just surviving. Our lives are about creating. We're only on this planet for a really short time, and our lives can seem really insignificant. And if it's just about being able to wake up and feed ourselves and survive another day, it's a pretty bleak existence. I think art, creativity, and creative expression is how we make meaning out of our lives. And I think that is really important. Through art, we can show how we see the world, what's important to us, what it's like to be a human today. So now I don't think of art as a luxury. I see it as a vital component to telling our story as humans. The third myth holding me back was that art is not a viable career. When I was younger, I didn't know anyone who was a fine artist. I didn't even know that that career even really existed. Even when I was looking into art schools, most of them seemed to be catered around graphic design, illustration, or animation, none of which really interested me. I didn't know that you could have a career as a painter, but once I got into painting again, and once I realized how important it was to me, I started looking for examples of people who were pursuing art full time, and I realized they were everywhere. Just because you don't know someone who's pursuing a particular career path doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means that you need to go out and find those people. Through the internet, through Instagram, through social media, I started looking for people who were pursuing art full time, and I was able to find those examples. I was able to find those role models who I could use to help motivate me for my own career. I looked at what degrees they had, what shows they applied for, what galleries they were working with, what awards they'd won, whether or not they were teaching, all the different ways that they were putting together their art career. I looked at newer paths as a way to be a full-time artist, like being a YouTube artist, or selling your work exclusively online, or getting into art licensing and making prints of your work. I started realizing that there were so many different ways that you could put together a career as a full-time artist. And when I found people pursuing this path, I didn't feel jealous. I instead felt motivated because I knew if they were doing it, I could do it too. All these examples helped me to realize that being a fine artist is totally a viable career path. It may just not be easy to see at first. And the last art myth was that you have to be wealthy or well-connected to be a full-time artist. I thought if I wanted to be a full-time painter, I either needed a trust fund to pay for my rent and my food, or I needed to know the right people who could help discover me and skyrocket my career. And while maybe this was true in the past, I don't think it's true anymore today. I think now it's easier than ever to be an artist without wealth or connections. With social media like Instagram and YouTube, you don't need to wait for someone to discover you. You can start putting your work out into the world immediately and get hundreds, thousands, even millions of eyes on your work from all around the world. Through the internet, you can connect with people who are excited about the weird and specific things that you're excited about, the people who really love your work. You can find your true fans. It doesn't matter if no one in your town has even heard of Monet before. Through the internet, you can connect with the global market. And that's how my art career started. I first just started posting my work to social media, and I started getting some traction, which felt awesome. But I still thought that I probably would never have much success in the gallery world since I didn't have the connections and I didn't go to art school. But I realized even that was a myth. The galleries in my area would do open calls where any artist can submit work. And through that, I was able to start showing my work at galleries too. And when I started working with galleries, then I started making some connections in the art world, but I didn't start out with those initially. The art world connections only came after I'd started finding some success on my own. And I also realized I didn't need a trust fund to fund my art practice. I could work a day job and still paint in my free time and pursue my art on the side. I can be my own art patron, and I'm really proud of that. And I'm working towards a future where my art career can stand on its own. And on this note, I do want to recognize that I do have a lot of privilege. I was born in the US to a well-off family, and I don't have any college debt or family members that I have to take care of or other large financial obligations. And that is a huge privilege. I was able to go to a good university and a graduate program that helped me get a good day job to support my art on the side. And even with all these advantages, I felt like pursuing an art career was just not an option. So I want to acknowledge all these advantages that I had and be respectful to those who are in a much tougher situation. Even with that caveat in mind, I still believe that pursuing an art career is way more accessible than it's ever been before. So to recap, first, pursuing art is not selfish. It brings joy and beauty to the world. Second, art is not a luxury. It's an essential part of being human. Third, art is a viable career. Thanks to the internet and globalization, there are so many ways to be a working artist. And fourth, you don't need to be wealthy or well-connected to be a fine artist. With patience and persistence, you can find your audience and connect with those who truly love your work. So that's all I have for today. I hope you liked this video, and please let me know in the comments if you've followed any of these art myths yourself, or if there are any other myths that have been holding you back in your career. I think it's so important to examine the beliefs that are holding us back and to ask if they're really true. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, a big shout out to my supporters on Patreon. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. And if you like my art, if you like my videos, and you want to help me make more, check out my Patreon at the link below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.